All right, listen up. That whole idea that you need a barbecue pitmaster in order to get delicious brisket at home, let's bust that myth. Because after a few months of some delicious testing, I'm here to tell you that you can get incredible brisket at home. Like you, I used to think that the only option for brisket was to buy it at a barbecue restaurant. I'd spend a fortune, and sometimes it was a complete letdown. And that's why I decided to dive into making all brisket at home right here on the smoker. And let me tell you something, I figured it out. Now I'm making brisket that's just as amazing and way cheaper. And I'm going to share my top 3 tips with you, plus one resting tip that's absolutely important. Let's get started. All right, let's talk about some pros and cons of buying your brisket at a barbecue restaurant. Now, some of the pros is it's done for you, and that's about it. Here's a lot of the cons. It's not always to your taste. And what I mean by that, it is not always the flavors that you like. You gotta wait in line to get it, and normally it is a lot more expensive. Another con of buying a brisket at a barbecue place is that I've gotten dry, reheated brisket that just wasn't up to my own standards. A pro of cooking your brisket at home is going to be that you can control the flavor. You get to actually enjoy the whole cooking process, and then you also get to save a ton of money. Now, cooking a brisket, it doesn't come without any challenges. It is something that you're going to need a good amount of patience for, but in the long run, that patience pays off. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is pick a brisket that's right for you. This could be a point, this could be a flat, or this could be a whole packer brisket. Now, the flat, that's the thinner part of a brisket. This is going to cook pretty fast. It's also the one that is the least forgiving. Now, the point, this is the thicker part of the brisket. It has a lot of fat. It's very forgiving, and it does take a little bit longer to smoke. Now, a whole packer brisket is where you combine the two muscles, the point and the flat. And it's usually between 10 to 15 pounds. And this, for me, is going to be the best brisket that you can buy. Then when it comes to seasoning, you have a couple different options. You could do a dry rub. You could also marinate the brisket. You could also inject the brisket as well. Now, for me, my personal preference is just doing a dry rub on the brisket and let it sit out for about like 30 minutes, maybe an hour, while those spices and seasonings penetrate the meat. I haven't had much luck with marinades. Yeah, they do get the brisket nice and juicy, but a lot of them you got to mix just right. If you don't mix just right, you're going to get just odd taste in the meat. When it comes to the smoking process, I'm using a charcoal smoker, but you can use a pellet grill, you can use an electric smoker, a propane smoker as well. You can even use a Weber kettle grill. It really doesn't matter. The process is going to be the same. I want to get my smoker up to about 225 degrees to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. This low and slow option, this is the sweet spot for your brisket. A lot of people like to do their brisket hot and fast, which is definitely an option. I found that the fat just doesn't render to my liking. So I always go low and slow. Again, 225 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're new to backyard barbecue and you need a little help with smoking times and temperatures, I've got a free guide that's perfect for getting started. It covers beets and veggies and everything in between. Just drop a 100 in the comments below and I'll send it your way. Now, the first mistake that you're going to want to avoid is either overcooking or undercooking your brisket. And how you're going to do that is by using a meat probe. This is going to tell you exactly what the internal temperature is, and what we're looking for to get that nice, tender, juicy brisket is an internal temperature between 200 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. And pretty much the only way that you're going to know that you've hit that proper internal temperature is with a temperature probe. And if you look at this right here, that's the meter plus. The meter plus is what I rely on for every single cook. There's no more guessing on the internal temperature. This thing tells me exactly what the internal temperature is. And it gives me alerts of when I hit certain internal temperatures so I can remove the meat from the smoker. Now, mistake number 2 is not resting your meat. People like to take their meat right off the smoker and go directly into slicing the meat. And that's not how you want to do it. What you're going to want to do, let this brisket rest for about 1 to 4 hours, wrapped in a towel in a cooler. This allows the juices to redistribute back into the meat. Now, mistake number 3 is not knowing how to slice a brisket. The flat and the point have two different grains. And what I'm saying here is that the flat, the grain runs one way, and in the point, the grain runs a different way. So what you're gonna have to do is separate the flat from the point and then slice against the grain. So the flat here, you're gonna do about 1/4 of an inch against the grain. And then on the point, you're gonna rotate it about 90 degrees and then slice against the grain that way. When you get to cooking your brisket, know that it's gonna take probably about 12 hours. And patience is gonna be key here. Do not rush this process. You want your fat to properly render, and you want to be cooking this long enough that your bark gets developed. Now, at some point, you're gonna hit the stall. And this is where the internal temperature of your brisket doesn't go up. It just stays in one spot. And this could be happening for hours on end. Now, a lot of people just push through the stall and let their brisket continue to cook. What you can do in order to get around the stall is to wrap your brisket either in butcher paper or in aluminum foil. I prefer aluminum foil, but just know that your bark is going to be a little bit softer than if you did butcher paper. Now, when it comes to rest, you're going to want this brisket to rest between 1 to 4 hours, wrapped in a towel and a cooler. And when it comes to reheating the brisket, you're going to want to put it in the oven right around 250 degrees to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's only going to take probably 10 to 15 minutes to reheat. It's really not going to take that long. When it comes to serving the brisket, you could do it in slices, you could do it in sandwiches, you could do it in tacos. I've even incorporated some of this brisket into my eggs in the morning. Leftover brisket is really versatile, and you can use it for a bunch of different recipes. You could also use it for chili. So after about 10 to 12 hours of cooking, of resting, you now have your brisket right at home. Yeah, it took a little bit of time to get there, but the cost savings makes the time worth it. So if you're tired of relying on barbecue pitmasters and getting an inconsistent product and you want to take control of your brisket at home, I suggest using this method. It may take some time in order to nail it, but trust me, in the long run, you're going to appreciate the process. But this is just one way to cook a brisket. Check out this video right here where I cooked the most insanely tender and juicy brisket I've ever cooked. You're going to see the juices pouring out of this brisket, and it was absolutely delicious. Check out this video right here, and I'll see you there.